Hello and welcome to a TWTV special with the legend that is Ray Crawford, Town's greatest ever goal scorer and a member of the team that won the First Division title for the first and only time in Town's history in 1961-62, 60 years ago this year. Ray, great to speak to you. How are you?
I'm very well, Phil. Thank you. Looking forward to Saturday.
Yes, because you're going to the game, aren't you? Between two of your
Yes, I've been
clubs.
invited up. It's great.
So I've been reading a bit of your history. 218 goals, 354 games for Town. No one's come close to that. Not even John Walk, not even Ted Phillips. But you didn't actually want to come to Ipswich, did you? When the idea was initially floated to you.
Well, we just played as a team, and I most of the time I was in the box, and the chances came, and I was always told to hit the goal, no matter where the goalkeeper is, just hit the goal. And I had good players around me. I had my old mate Ted Phillips, didn't I? I mean, Ted from 25 yards. It was, if the goalkeeper saved it, he didn't get hold of it, and I just used to follow up and get a few tap-ins.
So reading your book,
yes.
When the idea of, in September 1958, when the idea was floated to you of joining Ipswich Town, you didn't jump at the chance, did you? You're a bit hesitant, weren't you?
Oh yes, I'd seen the Town play. I went up an evening game at Leighton Orient at that time. They were in the league, and I wasn't very impressed. And I was told Alf Ramsey that no, I wouldn't be signing for him. And I went back to Portsmouth, and the manager wasn't very nice to me back there. There was a fella called Freddie Cox. He was a manager. And he said, well, you'll never play for Portsmouth again. So obviously that tipped the edge. And I contacted Sir Alf, which is Alf Ramsey then. And he said, come up to the game at Fulham on Saturday, and which I did, and signed in the office at Fulham.
It seems strange signing for one club in the office of another club, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it? Wouldn't happen nowadays.
No, probably not. So, and you scored twice on your debut?
Yes. We went down to Swansea, I think. We got beat, but yeah, I got a couple of goals. And then I'll always remember going to Wales 2 weeks running, because we played Cardiff the next week, and I got one, and my pal Derek Rees, who was at Portsmouth with me at the time, before he moved up to Ipswich, and we got one each, and we won down in Cardiff. So I've got away to a good start, really, with the Town.
Yes, yeah. Reading your stats, you got a hat-trick against Brighton, 9 goals in your first 8 games, 17 in your first 16. So you sort of hit the ground running, really, didn't you?
Yes, yeah. But I used to drift out to the wing when I first arrived at Portman Road with Sir Alf, and he had a talk with me. He said, I haven't got you as a winger, because I used to do that at Portsmouth. I was a left winger at Portsmouth. I wasn't. I only played up the middle when they were struggling to get somebody fit. But I was actually a right-footed left winger. That was all my career, right up until I was 20, and then I changed around to be a striker.
Yeah. And you came in as the striker kind of to replace Tom Garnies, didn't you?
Yeah, I took a lot of stick to start with.
Well, I couldn't believe
Tom was an idol at Portman Road.
I was reading in your book about the poison pen letters. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, that's true. I got a poison. I'd played for England and got back, and had some nasty letters, even though I'd played for England.
So there's nothing. You get all these players these days getting nasty tweets, but there's nothing new in the world. You were getting that kind of thing by letter back in the day, weren't you?
Yeah, you're right, Phil. But I was thick-skinned. My dad was a boxer, so he knew how to take a punch, and I was the same.
Well, you have to learn to be thick-skinned as a footballer, don't you?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so Garnies was obviously the big hero at the club, and so you felt that there were big shoes to fill, really.
Yeah, it was, because he was a nice fella as well. I knew Tom well, and when he got the pub, I used to go in his pub and have a drink with him.
So that was the mulberry tree, wasn't it? Is that right?
That's it. Yeah, that was it. But he, as I say, he was a giant. I mean, he must have been about 4 inches taller than me, and I was quite agile. So I'm only 5'10", but I used to jump quite high.
So you come in 58, and they're already in the second division by that stage, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah.
And Sir Alf, had he already sort of come up with his system of withdrawing the wingers at that stage?
Yes, he had. He used to get the wingers to drop back and take the ball off the fullbacks, and then progress down the wing, or play the ball up to Ted and myself, and then we'd get it back to them, and then our job was to get in the box and finish it off. And Alf had this idea in his head, and it took the league teams a few years to suss it out. I mean, obviously, when we beat Tottenham, and I always remember Bill Nicholson saying they didn't know what to do. They didn't know whether the fullbacks to come up and mark the winger, or stop back and defend and just mark space. So, we caught them out.
That's extraordinary innovation, really. I mean, basically invented 4-4-2, didn't he? Really?
Yes, that's right.
And
That was a start of it, and and Alf obviously had to have the players to do it, and that's why he brought players in to play that system.
So he was a manager who brought players in to his system, rather than trying to sort of to fit a system around the players that he'd got. The system was the most important thing. Yeah,
that's true.
It's interesting how it sort of how it developed. So I've been reading about some of the training methods as well. That he if you lost, you trained without any balls.
Yeah. Well, that was Alf's idea. His idea was not to let us have a ball, but every club don't have a player like Ted Phillips who could get a ball from where we do not know, but he always used to get a ball. And Alf used to call Jimmy over and say, "Where did he get that football?" And Jimmy just used to shrug his shoulders, much to say, "I don't know." But Ted always knew where to get a football.
Didn't he hide them around the training ground? Is that right?
We don't know. He probably went to the boot of his car. I don't know. But he always turned up with a football. And what a character Ted was.
Yeah, well, tell us a bit about your partnership with Ted then. Did it immediately click with him?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. It just happened. We were traveling back from one game, and we're on the train and we're having a beer, and he said, I didn't know that he had been in Malaya with the armed forces he was with. He was actually in Malaya, and I was in Malaya at the same time, and we didn't meet up or anything. And if he hadn't have told me, I wouldn't have known. But yeah, what a character.
And you mentioned Jimmy. It was Jimmy Forsyth, you mean? It was obviously
Jimmy Forsyth. Yeah, Jimmy was a lovely man.
Yeah, was he a big part of Alf's team, as it were, off-field team?
Yeah, I think so, because when you've got a manager like Alf, and he tells you what to do, then if it was any problems, we go to Jimmy, and Jimmy said, "Well, this is what the manager wants," and we just accepted it. He just put everything into operation that Alf wanted him to do.
Yeah. So you win the second division title in 60-61. Phillips 30, Crawford 40. I mean, using that stat, there's not often this era that a strike partnership scores 70 goals between them, is it? But you were sort of that season must have been the sort of a big step for the club, really, because Ipswich had never been in the top flight before, had they?
No, they'd never been up there. I don't think they'd ever been over halfway up the table. I mean, if anything, once we got halfway up the table, and the seasons I was there before, they were really pleased to get halfway up the table, and we just clicked, and we had a team. Everybody played for one another. We were so close. I mean, we'd go out to midweek to dart matches as a group. We'd all meet up. We'd go out to pubs, and they would bring in their supporters, and it was a proper club feeling. It was it was something really nice, something that I never known down in Portsmouth. I mean, we'd meet in Portsmouth for a game, but that was it. We trained together, but there was never that closeness. And at Ipswich Town, and Alf, he wanted us to be all together. He let us all go out playing darts on a Wednesday night, and after Wednesday night, he expected us to be professional, which we were. And we were professional up to Wednesday. I mean, nobody ever got drunk, and we just went out to meet the supporters, and probably that's what helped us all through. We were as one. We were all together. There was no bitchiness about anything. We were all on the same money, same wages. I remember having a good time and going in to see Alf Ramsey wanting a pay rise. I ended up coming out thinking I should have given Alf a couple of quid to help to play the boys. It was so funny. He said, can you cross a ball and score? I went, no, I can cross a ball and I can score. I said, I can't do both. He said, well, if I give you a pay rise, I should give Jimmy a pay rise because he's getting the ball to you, or Roy Stevenson. I come out feeling like, oh, I should have given you £2 back, Alf. Never mind, £2 more.
So is that how he was there? Because we sort of see clips of Sir Alf, and I think there's always this kind of idea that he's quite a cold sort of character, which is perhaps because of the way he was in the media. He wasn't a particularly media-friendly manager, was he? But was there a sort of sense of humour side to him? And was he?
Alf was a straightforward guy. Yeah, he was. You could go in and talk to him about football, and you could come down the road and he could talk football, and wherever you went, we used to come back on a train, and Alf would come in with the players and talk football. And as soon as we went talking about something else, Alf would get up and walk away. Alf was football, football, football.
Huh. Well, it served him well, didn't it, as a career?
Oh yeah.
So you
he told me off once. I played for England and I crossed the ball for Bobby Charlton to score. We drew 1-1 with my first international with Ireland, and he said he was moaning about Bobby Charlton scoring. He said he should have been crossing the ball to you. You should have been crossing the ball to him. I thought, well, I did well really going down the line, crossing it for him, but Alf didn't seem to think so. That he had his views on who wanted to score and who should cross the ball, and
what everyone's role was. Yeah,
that's how it was.
Well, one story that I read in your book was about going to Norwich in the second division title season, and there was a coffin apparently.
You just twist my memory. We couldn't believe it. Because we met at the ground, got in the coach, and it's probably an hour up the road in Norwich, and we were up there and we saw these people carrying a coffin, and we all thought it was serious. People carrying a coffin, and as we went by, it was all written on the side, "We are going to bury Ipswich today," and we thought it was quite comical. Well, we beat them anyway up there, so it was good.
Yeah, 3-0, I think. So
yeah, I can't remember the score, but yeah, you're probably right.
So 61-62, first time Ipswich ever in the top division, and there was no expectation at all. I mean, to say there was no expectation is sort of overstating it, isn't it?
Yeah. So, well, we started off the season bad, didn't we? I mean, I think it was 4 games before we ever got a result. I think we got beat by everybody, and the first game was okay. That was away at Bolton. I remember that. I think we drew 1-1 or whatever, and it seemed to be over. Then when Man City beat us and someone else beat us, and then we were a bit low, and then we were playing. We were fortunate actually because we were playing against West Ham, who were a really good footballing side. And I must tell you a story about that one too. It was when we went into the betting shop before the game, a few of the boys, myself as well, and we put a few bob on us to beat West Ham, and we did. And we all won a bit of money that day, more than our wages, in fact, because West Ham were a good side, but that was our first really good win. We beat them about 4, I think. I think Ted got a couple and I got a couple, and they had star players coming through at that time: Jeff Hurst, Bobby Moore, and a few others there that were really good players.
You beat Burnley 6-2 in August as well, didn't you?
That was a brilliant game. That was up there too. I mean, we got beat. I think we got beat about 4-2, something like that, or maybe a bit higher. But that was when we really clicked. I don't think any team in that time had all 5 forwards score a goal. They're all 5 of us. I got 2 that night. I know that because I was a bit of a goal-hungry person. And everybody else in the forward line, Jimmy, Steve-O, Dougie Moran, Big Ted, we all scored that day. And I got 2, so that made it 6.
So you sort of in that period, the Burnley, I think, was the first of 4 games in a row that you won. So did you start to feel like you were a worthy first division players at that point, a worthy first division team?
No, we were rather shy. I mean, we didn't think we could. We just went out there and tried not to get beat at first because that's a good division. The first division in those days. I mean, well, like now the Premiership, isn't it? Really good sides, and we got away to a bad start, and then we just came good, and people didn't know how to handle Jimmy Ledbetter and Roy Stevenson, and they were the 2 main players probably for Alf, as well as our defence, of course. But they were the main people for us. So they'd go down the line and cross the ball, and Ted and myself we said get a lot of goals from their crosses, obviously.
And Jimmy Ledbetter, it even put the ball the right way round so you didn't get the laces.
It was. I think Jimmy was underestimated. The fullbacks used to look at Jimmy, I'm sure, and think, "What is he doing playing?" He was so gangly. He looked old. I'm not being disrespectful to him because he was a good player, and he just used to let the ball do the work. He'd go up to the fullback and he would show him the ball. And as the fella went to kick the ball away from him, Jimmy would drag it back. And then he would just push the ball past him a couple of yards. And that's all Jimmy needed to get his cross in. And Ted, myself, Dougie Moran, anybody else who should get in the box and get on the end of it. But Jimmy was, I think they underestimated Jimmy.
And Roy Stevenson, I think he was a sort of the set piece taker as well, wasn't he?
Yes.
And he was similarly good at crossing?
Yeah, brilliant. Actually brilliant.
And so you've sort of, what's the sort of milestone victory, I suppose, in that early stage of the season was Tottenham, wasn't it? The double winners the previous year, and you beat them 3-2 at home.
Yeah, Tottenham thought they had it all wrapped up, and I always remember we went to Tottenham near the end of the season, and we performed really well. They had Jimmy Greaves just come back from Italy, and Jimmy scored that night against us. But Ted had a fantastic night at Tottenham. Scored a couple of goals. The defence was solid. we looked like a football team. We looked worthy of winning that league on that performance that night, and everybody played so well, and that's what cost Tottenham the league. They thought they were going to win it. Burnley thought they were going to win it, and well, Burnley had a chance of winning it, didn't they? They had 2 home games to go, and they had playing Chelsea and somebody else. I can't remember the other one, and they just didn't do it. We did, and they didn't, and it was a really good end of season for us.
So sort of earlier in the season, when you beat Spurs at home, and I was reading your book that Maurice Norman and Bobby Smith both had a word to say on the way off after they'd been beaten, because they were they were the stars, weren't they? At the time.
They were. I mean, Bobby was playing. Yeah, Bobby was playing for England at that time, and big Maurice Norman from up at Norwich. What he wasn't going to do to me at White Hart Lane in a couple of weeks' time was nobody's business. But that was football in those days. You don't get it nowadays. You can't understand what the foreigners are saying anyway.
But did people start to take notice after you'd beaten Spurs the first time?
I think so. Yeah. I think so. I think they because there's no doubt about it. On our day, we were really good, and we would have been the next season, but we had so many injuries. There's only 2 players the next season that played every game. That was Billy Baxter and myself. Everyone else was injured at some time or other. And Alf didn't have the backup players to put in, and that was it. I mean, he didn't have any money. I mean, Mr. John gave him money for wages, but he didn't give him any money to buy players. And I think Alf was just a magician with us. He just knew how to get the best out of us.
Well, yeah, looking at the results, 4-1 win at Manchester United. I mean, Ipswich Town winning 4-1 at Manchester United is an incredible thing, isn't it?
Yeah, unbelievable. Unbelievable to do that. And I remember Bobby Charlton walking off and saying, "We must have had 80% of the game," he said, "and you beat us 4-1. I said, "Well, that's how it goes, Bob." What can you say to someone?
No, I know. And of course, and it was that point that you got your England caps, wasn't it? But you'd already played international football.
So I say everybody needs someone in the side to help them along, and I had, as I say, 2 wingers, midfield players, all helping me to score goals. I mean, no more than Ted Phillips, who used to have these tremendous shots, and the keeper used to drop them, or they hit the bar or hit the post, and I'd just follow up because that's what I was taught to do: stop out the middle, get the goals. And I was very fortunate to be able to get them. And when I look back on my record, it's amazing, really. But I've got to thank all the players around me for helping me.
So your England caps, because it was a different system in those days, wasn't it? That Walter Winterbottom was the manager, but there was like a selection committee, wasn't there? He didn't.
Oh, that was crazy, wasn't it? It was a crazy time, and Walter Winterbottom came up to Portman Road, and I was talking to him before the game, and he was moaning about Jimmy Greaves, one of the greatest goal scorers this country's ever had. And he said he doesn't work back. And I'm thinking, like, work back? What do you want to work back for? You got people at the back. But I didn't argue with him because he was the England coach. He didn't pick the players. He didn't, and because I remember the talk, reading it in one of Alf's books, how the directors of England brought a list to Sir Alf Ramsey and said, "Here's some players that you might want to play." And he took the list off him and said, "Thank you, gentlemen. Just go to the stand and enjoy the game. I will do everything else." And I should imagine that's what marked Alf's cards a little bit when he struggled a bit.
Yes, I can imagine, because I'm guessing that list went straight in the bin. So you'd already won an international cap, though. You played for Malaya, hadn't you?
I went with Malayan team. I went to Indonesia. I was the only Englishman there with the Malayan team, and because I was there for 18 months, I played for Selangor Rangers, and I really enjoyed my time out there. I mean, I went in the jungle a few times, and as well to earn my money. I think I got 28 shillings a week or something.
So this was in
Shillings.
the army, and this is how the nickname Jungle Boy came from, isn't it?
Yeah, the Jungle Boy. Well, I got that through the local press, and a fella in in one of the local papers to phone me up when I was making my debut for Portsmouth, and he wanted a story, and he said, well, where have you come from? I said, oh, I've been in the army, and I've been out in Malaya and in the jungle fighting the terrorists, and that's how it hit. It hit on the Saturday morning. Jungle Boy makes debut for Portsmouth.
And it stuck. Yeah. Yeah. So you only won 2 caps for England, and you really should have won more.
I got me 2 caps. I got three games for the Football League, which was the same sort of thing. You play Scotland and Ireland and that. So I was pleased with getting my two caps. It was an era when quite a few players, I think, got a couple of caps or 1 cap. Brian Clough only got 1.
And it's an injury.
A great player like Clough he was.
Yeah.
And I worked with Clough here at Brighton.
Oh yes.
And it was really hard work. Nothing was right for Brian Clough. But anyway, he was such a great player, you didn't argue with him.
No, I can imagine. You feel you should have won more? 1 goal as well. You did score a goal, didn't you?
Well, I think when you're playing, you always think you're going to get more caps. And I remember Alf Ramsey. We'd been away. We played at Leicester, I think, and we'd gone up there. And on the way back, we beat Leicester up there. And on the way back, Alf come and sat next to me in the coach on the way back. He said, I just want to tell you, Ray, you've not been selected for the next England team. So he said, don't worry about it. Just keep playing your football and enjoy it. And he got up and went back to sit up front like he used to. But he took the time to come back and inform me that I wasn't playing in the next England game. And, I appreciated that. That was good.
Yes, good man.
I didn't want to be here. I'm not good that I was left out of the team, but definitely he took the time and to come at the back and say to me, I think they've made a mistake, but you're not playing in the next game. I think how nice that was of him to take, to come and talk to me.
Because of course it meant you missed out on the '62 World Cup, didn't you? Because of course there was the World Cup in Chile.
Yeah. Well, it's I wasn't expecting to. When people said Alf taking England over, he said, "Oh, you'll be okay." I said, "No. Alf got his ideas, what he wants, and I've had my time." But as I say, Alf took a little bit of time to get himself sorted out with the England team. But who would have left Jimmy Greaves out of the England setup?
No.
Only Alf Ramsey. He had a system that he wanted to play, and Jimmy couldn't have played that system. Jimmy Greaves couldn't have played the system that Alf wanted. So he picked players that could play that system and who could win games. And I appreciate Alf's way Alf did it. He didn't care about what people said about him. He knew what he wanted, and he did it his way.
You hit the top of the table for the first time in a club's history with a win against Wolves in late March. I didn't realise until I kind of looked back how late it was that you hit the top of the table. But it wasn't many weeks before the end of the season, was it?
No, not really. No, we hit the top, but we weren't. It was only because Burnley had games in hand because they were in the European Cup. And they were a good side. They had about 7 internationals. They were good. And who'd have thought that they would have lost at home when they should have beat Chelsea, who just got relegated.
Yeah.
I mean, who would have thought that they probably thought it was an easy game. So really, Chelsea helped us win the league as well.
Yes, it's so when you hit the top of the league, I presume Sir Alf was kind of keeping a lid on things, not letting people get too carried away.
That's right. It just kept everything so simple. And that's what it was. Every day you should train. If we had a good win on a Saturday, he'd say, well, you can have Monday off, take your wife shopping, or do something like that. That's what he would say to you. I'll see you Tuesday, and if we got beat or if we drawn the game, he'd say, see you Monday morning. And we knew, we'd be doing some training, but he was very down to earth sort of guy, and that's why he got the best out of players that wanted to do it his way. You had to play to Alf's style, because Dermot Curtis was a better player than me. He was more skillful. I could say he had a ball better than me. He was a really good player, but he didn't fit in Alf's system. He didn't play for the team. Alf didn't think that he played enough for the team. I was selected over him because he'd bought him a few weeks before he bought me. So why, you wouldn't have thought that he would have come down to Portsmouth to buy me when he just bought Dermot, who was an Irish international, 3 or 4 weeks before me. So he obviously wasn't really happy with Dermot's play the way the style he played.
And then you came in, and obviously you and Ted just hit it off.
That was just made in heaven, us two.
Yeah, that's.
I wouldn't shoot over 15 yards out. I mean, I didn't have any power. I just used to perhaps glide my shots in, but Ted used to hammer them in. And one game, he knocked the goalkeeper in the back of the net. I mean, you wouldn't see that nowadays, I know, but this guy tried to hold it on his chest, and he before he knew where he was in the back of the net.
I mean, does anybody hit the ball as hard as Ted Phillips?
Sorry?
Has anybody hit the ball as hard as Ted Phillips?
No, never, ever. No one in the whole league. He said he went up to London once. He said, and I was interested because Bobby Smith was gone along with him as well. They had some tournament or something, and Ted went up and for the hardest shot. And I said, hey, did Smithy do then? He went, he couldn't even hit the goal. That was Ted. That was Ted down to earth. You ask him a question, he just give you a one back. Couldn't hit the goal. I went, what? No. He laughed. He said, yeah, he could, but he couldn't. He wasn't that good. But Ted used to thunder him in. God. We had the reporter in Ipswich, wasn't it? Tony
Garnett.
Tony Garnett in goal. One afternoon,
yeah.
We were back afternoon training, and Tony Garnett wanted to go in goal, and Ted got half a dozen footballs lined up, and he hammered one. It went in the back of the net, and from nowhere, Alf Ramsey turned up. He said to Jimmy, get Tony Garnett that goal. He said, Ted will kill him. And that was what he actually said. He will kill him.
He was quite a character though, Ted, wasn't he? I was reading this story about how he commandeered the PA one day when you were training at Portman Road.
Yeah.
And he was commentating, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah. You just didn't know what was going to come next with Ted. Apart from the fact that you'd have a laugh and a joke, and what a character.
Hiding people's clothes, that was another thing that he used to do, wasn't it?
If you was because we had big bars then, when you get half a dozen or a team in a bath, and if you got next to Ted, just didn't open your mouth because before you knew where you were, you'd had a mouthful of soap. He used to get the soap and just run it along their teeth. I never opened my mouth when I was next to Ted in the bath.
Didn't you have a player who sang opera?
Sorry?
Didn't you have a player who sang opera in the bath? Bobby Johnston.
Oh yeah, Bobby. I was singing wing half. Yeah, Bobby. Yeah, he didn't. You know, Ted didn't care who it was. As long as if you were by him, just keep your mouth shut.
So anyway, so you get to Easter of that season, and you win. You beat Arsenal 3-0. I mean, again, another kind of remarkable result in Ipswich Town's history at that stage. And then you get to the final day, and Burnley are 2 points behind with the game in hand, aren't they, at that stage?
Yeah, that's right.
And you're playing Aston Villa.
Playing Chelsea at home, who'd already been relegated. And
so how do you feel going into that game against Aston Villa then?
The Aston Villa game was a fantastic game. They come up just not to get beat. And, you know, and obviously on the day I got a couple of goals by good play from the rest of the team. And, you know, that really set us up. We won it. You know, it was, we always thought we could win that game.
Was it a bit nervy though?
I think they had big Derek Dugan playing for them in those days.
Was it a bit, because you didn't score until like the 72nd minute, did you? I think so. Was it getting a bit nervy as the game was going on?
No, not really. No one was edgy. We just kept playing and playing. We probably didn't think deep down that we were going to win the league anyway, because Burnley had these 2 games to play. And what they ended up, instead of getting 4 points, they got one out of 4. So, you know, we won it. And no, I think the whole team on the day played to the best of their ability.
So your first goal was John Ellsworth. I talked to John Ellsworthy about this 20 years ago. I interviewed him 20 years ago. And it was a Stevenson free kick, wasn't it, on the right?
That's right, yes.
And John Ellsworthy headed it against the bar. And he said to me, he said, I saw that come off the bar. And he thought, oh no, what have I done? And he said, you know, I've missed this big chance. And he said, then he saw that you were there, and he thought, oh, that's all right then. Ray will score. Ray will help me out, and then you scored, didn't you? Diving header, wasn't it?
Yeah. Goalkeeper was on the goal line. He obviously went for John's header first, and then it came back off the goalpost, off the crossbar, and an easy one for me to head in. But the second one I enjoyed the best because it was 1-on-1. Against me and a young lad called Slevenhawk. He was some Irish or Welsh international, some sort of international young player. And I wasn't the quickest, but I was that day because I broke from the halfway line, and Nigel Sims in goal for Aston Villa, and he saved my first shot. And I followed up and hammered it in the net, and that was 2-0, and that was it.
So you knew you'd won the game.
That was it. But I enjoyed that second goal.
And you had a couple of goals disallowed, didn't you? I can't remember who scored.
Yeah. Dougie had one disallowed. Dougie Moran and Ted. They both, you know, they came with an idea of getting a draw, and it backfired on them. I think Joe Mercer. I think Joe Mercer was the manager in those days.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I was reading it. Yeah, the manager. Yeah,
and he was a bit of a cocky devil, but he came in the dressing room after and you know, said to the lads, "Well done."
When the whistle went, the Burnley game hadn't finished, had it?
No, we didn't know the result. We didn't know. We just came off as normal, and then we got back in the dressing room. And it came over that we couldn't believe it at first. I mean, Chelsea were down and out. Tommy Docherty tried to sign me that year too. He wanted me to go to Chelsea with him. but I said no.
Good job you did. So you find out the score, and so do you all go straight back out on the pitch then to celebrate with the fans?
Yeah, we went straight back out. We went straight back out with the supporters. We thought that's, they'd been by us over the season long, and we thought we'd go out and celebrate with them. And yeah, it was fantastic time. And can always remember how Alf there. I mean, apparently after we'd all left, Alf did a bit of lapping around the pitch. Apparently, with John Cobbold. But we didn't know that. We didn't know that until we read it in the paper.
So by that time, you were all in the pub somewhere.
No, actually, that night we got invited. We got invited down to Felixstowe. John Cobbold invited everybody down, and all the players, their wives, and we stayed the night down there. And yeah,
wasn't there
had a great time?
Wasn't there champagne in the dressing room provided by I think Cliff Moore was there from Kenneth Wolstenholme. So Kenneth
Wolstenholme
said,
well, he said that he would buy champagne for every player if in the team if we won the league. He said we didn't have a chance.
But he was as good as his word, but he couldn't make it.
Yeah, that's right. And he came to the club dinner.
Oh, did he?
When we went to London, he came along, and he honoured his thoughts to us all. Yeah, he was, as I say, when you look back on it, little Ipswich Town winning the league, when you had all the big noises there. I mean, Arsenal, Tottenham, Burnley. I mean, Burnley were a really big side then.
I mean, did it feel like that? Were you sort of pinching yourselves? You were like living a fairy tale, weren't you?
Yeah, we were really, but we were just ordinary people, we were ordinary players. I mean, I was the only English international. Who else did we have? That was Dermot, who wasn't in the side a lot. And that was it, really, wasn't it? We didn't have any star players, and I never thought it was myself as a star player. I just thought I was one of the lads. I mean, there was no big I ams. We were all together. Everywhere we went. As I say, we went at social nights. We'd all go together. There was so much friendship amongst the players that it was just one of those things. We just took it in our stride, and to win the league, we just didn't think about it. We didn't think, we've got to go out and win, and we might win the league. We just went out to play the game, and that was it. And when it came over that Chelsea had gone up, beat Burnley, we at that time we just couldn't believe it.
So your medal still takes pride of place, does it?
Oh yes, without a doubt.
Because you won a few in your career.
I've got me medals, me 2 England caps, and so I've got something to look back on.
Yeah. So you went off. I was just reading that you were before you had an open top bus parade. You went to Denmark and Germany for a couple of games, didn't you?
Yeah. We were off the next day. No celebrating, nothing until we came back. We just ended up going on tour and just enjoying ourselves, really. I think most of us got drunk every night.
And who can blame you after a season like that? Yeah. So you remember the open
fantastic top? And Sir Alf would just let us go. He just, he wasn't Sir Alf then, was he? He was just Alf Ramsey.
But how was he? I mean, because he's got this kind of image of being very on the level the whole time. Were there too many signs of? Was there sort of much outward sign that he was chuffed with how everything was? And
no, he was very, very calm, and Alf was Alf. I mean, he was someone you could go and knock on his door and go and have a chat with him. I mean, Ted used to apparently go in every morning and have a chat with with Alf before training, because he's trained to get in early from Colchester.
Yeah.
So he'd get in there early and go and have a chat with Alf, and that was it. I mean, Alf would just talk to him about different things, and say different things, different games with Alf. It was football, and football.
So you scored 37 goals that year. Was that
Yeah,
your best year, do you think?
yeah. Well, the lads laid a load of goals on for me, and they got, if they didn't get their crosses in, I wouldn't have been able to score. But I was always a bit goal hungry. I was always following up, hoping to get a goalkeeper to drop the ball or to hit the bar or hit the post. I was always alert. I always wanted to score goals, and if I played on the Saturday and didn't score, I wasn't that happy. I was happy that we'd probably won, but I wasn't happy that I hadn't scored a goal, and that was my game. You don't score goals. You don't get as many goals as I did without working hard at it and wanting to score goals and expecting things. I probably made 3 or 4 runs and the keeper didn't drop one, but as soon as he dropped one, it was in the net.
Real penalty area predator. That was your.
Yeah, that's right. But you had to have people that got crosses in and got shots in you. I know I got a lot of credit for it, but I also worked hard for those goals.
And so the captain of the team that year, Andy Nelson, who's perhaps not a name sort of familiar to younger fans, but he was a very good captain, wasn't he? I've met him once. He was a very nice bloke, I thought.
Yeah. And he come up from West Ham, didn't he? And I think Andy missed the game because in one we had a little training match and I accidentally kicked him on an ankle, and I think he blamed me for not being one of the players that played every game. But I didn't mean to kick him. I accidentally just went for a ball and with him, because Alf used to mix the teams up. And but Andy was a good captain. He'd get the best out in. If he thought anybody in the side wasn't given 100%, he'd have a shout and a ball at him. And you did not argue with Andy because he's about 6'5".
Yeah.
You don't argue with people who are 6'5", do you?
No, well, certainly not if you're my height. No.
No.
And in your book, you said that Billy Baxter, you said, was Town's best ever player.
Yeah, fantastic player. Bill Baxter probably was the best player that the Town's ever had.
Where did he play? What position did he play?
And he played, well, actually, he was what he was called. It was a wing half in those days. Of course, he was in the army, wasn't he? So he was in the army. The army used to release him to come up and play. And then he moved to centre back. And you wouldn't think a fella of about 5'6" would play centre half, would you? But he was so good in the air for someone his size, and 100% player. He was worthy of being captain as he was when everybody else moved on.
So better than Kevin Beattie?
I think he's equal with any player that ever played for Portsmouth, for Ipswich. He was a good player. I mean, without a doubt. I don't like to compare them because of different people, but yeah, I would say at that time he was probably he kept a lot of the play that was played at Ipswich Town. He was probably the top player.
And also in your book, you talked about John Ellsworthy, and you said that in the early days that you were at Town, that if John Ellsworthy played well, Ipswich played well.
When I first went there, he had such a control of that midfield. I remember having a row with Dennis Law one day. We were playing at Huddersfield, and Dennis Law was a bit cheeky, and I think Big John got hold of him by the scruff of the neck, because, as I say, John was about 6'6" as well. Dennis Law was just coming into football at Huddersfield, and I remember he was a cheeky devil, and I remember John grabbing him by the shirt, but John was a really good player, a sensible person, because he was one of the first to go into business.
Yes.
He had a business and played football as well.
At a post office, didn't he?
A post, that's right.
Mm.
But really nice man, gentleman John.
And he had a fantastic memory. When I interviewed him, he had an incredible memory for sort of, he could almost kind of rattle off team talks that Sir Alf had given.
Yeah, you have to say he was a gentleman, and he was another one, an older player, that if you had any problems or you needed a little bit of advice, you could go to John and have a word with him, and he would give you some sensible advice. I don't think they've got people like that in the game nowadays.
Possibly not. So next season, Charity Shield, you lost 5-1, but you were all injured, weren't you?
10 men against Tottenham. Larry Carberry got injured in the first 5 minutes, and we had, I don't know what went wrong, but all the players seemed to get injured. As I said, it was only Bill Baxter and myself played every game.
Mm.
If you look at that record, and every player that played got injured for a certain amount of time. So we did struggle, but we got away with it near the end of the season, and before Alf left and went with England. We struggled a bit because of the injuries. And he never spent any money, did he, Alf? He didn't. When I say money, I mean big money. He wouldn't go out and buy a big player for any amount of money. Alf picked up a few bargains. I suppose I was one of them.
But the other thing was, people were working the system out, weren't they? Bill Nicholson reckoned he'd worked the system out, didn't he?
Yeah, there's a lot been said about that, but I suppose Alf could have gone to John Cobbold, I suppose, and got a few players, but he had faith in us coming through at the end, and we actually done it.
Yeah. So you had European Cup. That's another thing that era you.
Yeah, that was a fantastic time to play in the European Cup. You see, we had seen so many teams play in it, and then to actually play in it was a great achievement. And to beat AC Milan at Portman Road on the night that we did, it was a fantastic. I know we got beat out there. We were so naive. We lost 3-0 out there. Photographers flashing lights in our eyes while the game was going on. Ridiculous. And Alf was really annoyed about that. And then we had them at home. And by that time, I'd bought a new car. And it's and it was about 6:30. In those days, you didn't have to get to the ground till 6:45. 7:30 kickoff, 45 minutes before the kickoff, you could be anywhere. As long as you got it to the ground at that time, you was all right. I was on Norwich Road at 7:15. My car broke down, a brand new car, Vauxhall Victor. And I'm thumbing a lift to Portman Road in 45 minutes. I'm playing against AC Milan, and I'm on Norwich Road thumbing a lift, and the guy stopped. He went, "Aren't you playing tonight, Ray?" I went, "Yeah." I said, "Car's broke down." He said, "Jump in quick." He got me down to the ground at 5 to 7. I've gone through to the dressing room at 7 o'clock, and Alf Ramsey said to me, "Come on, Ray, you're leaving it a bit late." And I went, "Yeah, I didn't like to say anything about the car. I just said, yeah, I've just been putting my tickets on the gate for my friends." I said, "They're coming." because we had 2 free tickets in those days. So I get, and he never ever knew that 45 minutes before that kickoff, I was on Norwich Road. And we won that night as well. So I think we won 2-1, didn't we? I got one, and I think Bobby Winger. I've forgotten his name. That's what happens when you get my age.
I don't worry about that. But you'd already played. So I mean, that's fantastic, AC Milan. But you'd played Floriana in the previous round, hadn't you? And you'd scored 10.
I know.
And you got 5 of them, didn't you?
I got 5. Apparently I hold the record with somebody now. We were the only 2 that scored 5 goals in the European Cup. I know it's not called the European Cup now, but yeah, I got 5.
And you played the away game.
We won. What did we win? 10-1, wasn't it?
Yeah. 10. Yeah, it was. Yeah, and you'd already won 4-1 away, hadn't you, on a game?
Yeah.
Malta.
Well, that was Ted, wasn't it? Ted was thundering them in from 25 yards, whacking the goalkeeper. I got my 2 goals that day from the goalkeepers dropping the ball from Ted's shots. Imagine a little 5'5" goalkeeper in goal up against Ted Phillips' shots. And then, of course, when he came to Portman Road, he let 10 in. But we went through to the next round, and AC Milan, wasn't it?
And AC Milan. I mean, the team. I looked at the AC Milan team: Cesare Maldini, Jose Altafini, Giovanni Trapattoni, Giovanni Rivera. I mean, they're all big names, aren't they?
Oh, big international names. And for us to beat them that night, like we did, was a fantastic achievement for the club, the players, the supporters. It was a fantastic night. And as I say, we were very naive when we went out to Milan. And I'd never played in the European Cup again. That was it. That was my memories of winning that game that night at Portman Road, when everybody was behind the team and we played so well.
And of course, Milan went on to win the final that year, didn't they?
They won the cup, didn't they? Yeah, with the star players they had.
Yeah. So by that stage, I didn't realise actually until I was reading about it that Alf sort of announced that he was going to leave in the October, but didn't leave until sort of March, April time, did he?
No.
It must have been a strange time.
Oh no, he was there all the time, and yeah, it was a funny situation actually.
Because you had Jackie Milburn had already been appointed, and he was sort of taking an overview, wasn't he? He was kind of watching training and watching matches.
It wasn't fair really on Jack in that respect, but Jackie Milburn was such a lovely man. He was never cut out to be a manager. He didn't know how to sort the players out. He was very. He was like one of the players. I mean, we'd go playing 10-pin bowling with him, and you had Alf that was one way perhaps too much, and Jackie was the other way too much. But he was such a nice fella, Jackie Milburn, and he wasn't cut out to be a manager because he'd been successful with non-league sides. Because it's a bit different, isn't it? Guys coming from work and training and playing, but when you're with them every day, day in, day out, and he sold me off to Wolves, didn't he? I mean, I didn't know nothing about it. He said I asked for a move. I didn't ask for a move. I didn't know nothing about it. I mean, I was sitting in the dressing room after the game, and Jack came over to me. He put his hand on my knee. He said, "Stan Cullis is in the stand. He wants you to sign for him." And I went, and that was it. That was what was said, and that was done and dusted. And Ted out after that, Ted come up to me and said, Jackie come up to him after you left the dressing room, said, "You're playing number 9, Ted, from now on." And he went, "No, that's Ray's shirt. This is what Ted told me." He said, "It's Ray's shirt." He said, "No, Ray is going to sign for Wolves." He said, "He's gone off to sign for Wolves." He said, "Well, I'm not playing number 9." He said, "I'm number 10. I'm stopping at number 10. And that's the honest truth, what Ted told me. And as I say, I went up to Wolves, and I know Jackie wanted me to go, and obviously Wolves were a big club. So I went along with it, and I thoroughly enjoyed my stay at Wolves until Stan Cullis left. And because he was a character, Stan Cullis. He just used to come in the dressing room, and he didn't pick out names. He just used to say, "Where is he? Where is he?" And we were all looking at one another because we're thinking, like, who's he going to have a go at? And we were just all looking at one another, and then he'd have a go at someone. We played at Leicester one night, and at half time, you used to get 10 minutes at half time in those days. We played at Leicester. I was playing for Wolves. He's come in at half time he's got there, and he's had a go at me for 10 minutes. You would not believe that he could go on and on and on. And he went on, and he turned his back on me. He walked out the dressing room, and I just stood up to the lads, and I went, "You lads have got me the biggest rollicking I've had in football in my life." I said, "And you lot are out there with me." I said, after we won 2-0, I got both goals. He come in, he wrapped his arms around me and said, "God, that's what I bought you for," and walked out the dressing room again. Because I used to relax after the game. I mean, the lads told me we were travelling back from one game, and I was fast asleep, and he come at the back of the coach, and he pointed his finger at me and said to the rest of the team, "Look at him. He's got no conscience whatsoever. How can he go to sleep?" That's what the lads told me when we got off the coach. But Stan Cullis was like that. He either loved you or hated you. And as I say, he had the hobnail boots, I used to call them. He had this pair of shoes with the studs underneath, and you could hear him coming along the dressing room door, and people used to hide because we had pillars in our dressing room. It was old fashioned at Molyneux in those days. People used to hide behind it if they had a bad game because they knew what they were going to get off Stan Cullis. Unbelievable, man.
So you'd been away for Ipswich only 4 years, something like that?
Yeah.
No, 3 years, wasn't it? And in '66, you're back again under Bill McGarry. Won't go
to Bill McGarry. I nipped over to West Brom for a while. Got one of the worst injuries I've ever had. Couldn't get on with Jimmy Hagan because I had several meetings with Jimmy and said, "Why don't you praise the players more than you get on to them?" And he didn't like me for that, but I went in and had my say. And he called me in the office and said, "Bill McGarry's in the boardroom. He wants to sign you." Cheerio. And that was it. Yeah, cheerio, he said, and walked out. He walked out of his room, and I walked along to Bill McGarry, and Bill said he'll come down to Portman Road. When was that? On the Thursday night, I think I went and signed that night for the town, and had another great time with them. I made my debut up at Bolton again, and I scored. We lost 2-1, but I got a few goals and saw that season out. And I think the next season we got promotion, didn't we?
Yeah. And
Bill was a very hard man, very very stern man. He was sport. You know, he played golf midweek. You played badminton. You played squash, cricket in the cricket season. He was a proper sportsman, Bill McGarry.
Bill McGarry, I think, a bit forgotten, really, because without the Bill McGarry era, there would not have been a Bobby Robson era, would there?
No, that's true. That's true. I mean, yeah, he'd been to several of our games, Bob. I think he was still I think he'd been sacked by Fulham. He'd come back from Canada, I think, and yeah. Then, as I say, Bob came in. He was like a breath of fresh air. Actually, I mean, he was very enthusiastic. Loved coaching players. Yeah, he was okay, Bob. But before Bob came, I'd had a meeting with the chairman who had given me a free transfer. John Cobbold had given me a free transfer. Coming back from Newcastle, we got beat before Bobby had turned up. And John Cobbold, being around about the same age as me, we hit it off. And we're having a beer on the train. And he said, "What are you going to do when you finish football, Ray?" I said, "What, you mean the end of the season?" And he laughed. And I said, he said, "Do you want one of my pubs?"
Really?
And I went, "No, I want to go to South Africa with Roy Bailey's out there. I want to have a year in South Africa." And he said, "Right, you've got it. You've got it. You can go at the end of the season. You can go for free." So after I played, when Bobby came, I think we've been to Everton, drawn 2-2. I got a couple of goals up there, Bobby's first game. And I went on the Monday, I said, "You know I'm leaving at the end of the season, don't you?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I've got a free transfer at the end of the season." I said, "I just thought I'd let you know." He said, "I don't know nothing about this." So I said, "Well, you see the chairman, John Cobbold, has given me a free transfer." And John actually went back on it. I didn't make a scene about it, but he'd gone back on what he said to me. And that's what happened. In the end, they sold me off to Charlton, didn't they? So, but in fairness to the chairman, he did get me a testimonial, which I wasn't really entitled to. But, you know, I don't hold that against John Cobbold because I like the man. You know, I had many of drinks with him when I used to come back from West Brom. Once I left there, and I used to stop in the hotel, the pub hotel up by the station, and John used to pop in on a Thursday night and buy me a beer. So I was about his age, as I say, and we got on very well. So I didn't make a scene about it, but I ended up going to Charlton, which I didn't enjoy at all. But there.
You must have the usual number of stories about John Cobbold. I think everyone has John Cobbold.
Yeah, everybody's got stories about Mr. John, haven't they? And he had the club at heart. He done wonders for the club.
So you go to Charlton, and that ended your long association with Ipswich Town, didn't it? Did you?
Yeah. It's a shame, really, but that's how it happened. And as I say, I went to Charlton, didn't do very well. Went non-league for a while with Kettering. Went back into league football with Colchester. Had the famous win against Leeds United.
Yes.
And then I went to South Africa like I wanted to with Roy Bailey, and had a year right there with him before I came back here and got into coaching, which I said I would never do because I reckon players should be able to play like they wanted to. And I ended up being coach with Brian Clough down at the Goldstone. And that was an experience that I wouldn't want anybody to have, because Cloughie was out of this world. Cloughie was Cloughie, and I won't go anymore.
He did seem a man very set in his ways, I have to say, from what I remember of him.
Oh, without a doubt.
So Sir Alf, obviously, in that season, the 61-62 season, that obviously has to be the best season of your career and the one you look back on most fondly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think so. although it comes close to Colchester, because when you go and beat a team that's got 10 internationals and have come for a day out in the FA Cup and get beat like they did, I know they came good in the last 20 minutes, but I mean, to be 3-0 up against Leeds United, that is some, you know, that was some game, that. And I mean, what, 7 of us was a 32 and older. But I think it's about scoring the goals, isn't it? If you get the goals, you've got something to play with.
And you got 2 of them.
Yeah, I've had some great times in football. Absolutely fantastic.
Well, Ray, we've covered an absolutely enormous amount there, haven't we? And
yes,
it's I think 60 years on, I think it still remains probably the greatest season in town's hit. People talk about 80-81, don't they? But we never won the league in 80-81. 61-62. I think people talk about Leicester a few years ago winning the league, but I think that Town in 61-62 was probably the greatest achievement of any club.
I would go along with that. I would go along with that. Definitely the highest thing in this country, a team that we had, a team of virtually nobodies, wasn't it, really? And to perform like we did over 42 games, I mean, well, and you know, it was really, it was all down to Sir Alf. It was all down to Alf Ramsey. And obviously you've got to take it on board what he's telling you, but we were honoured to have Alf with us, I think.